Elizabeth began to notice the slaves more after the 13th rejection. Not because they had suddenly appeared, but because something inside her had finally gone quiet enough to see them clearly. Before, they had been part of the background of the estate, figures moving through fields and corridors, spoken to but rarely spoken about. Now, she watched them with a strange, aching attentiveness. Each morning, from the tall window in the eastern wing, she observed them gathering before sunrise. Their bodies moved with practiced efficiency, shoulders already burdened before the day had begun. Some carried tools. Others carried silence. All of them carried lives that did not belong to them. Elizabeth had been taught since childhood that she was fortunate. "You have everything," her father often said. "Look at how they live." So she looked. She watched hands blister under the sun. She watched backs bend, straighten, and bend again. She watched faces hardened by exhaustion yet softened by shared glances, by small gestures of solidarity. A hand passed a cup of water, a murmured word of encouragement, a shared smile that lasted only seconds but seemed to mean everything. What unsettled Elizabeth most was not their suffering, it was their presence. They existed fully within their pain. They spoke. They laughed quietly when they could. They mourned openly when one of them fell ill or was punished. Their lives were narrow, cruelly restricted, but undeniably alive. Elizabeth felt something twist inside her chest. She, on the other hand, lived surrounded by abundance and felt nothing but absence. Her days were long and empty. Meals arrived whether she wanted them or not. Dresses were chosen for her. Her schedule existed only to fill time, not to give it meaning. No one needed her. No one relied on her presence. She was kept, not cherished. One afternoon, she watched a young slave woman collapse from exhaustion near the gardens. Others rushed to help her up before overseers noticed. There was urgency, fear, but also care. Elizabeth wondered, with sudden clarity, who would rush to her aid if she fell. The answer came swiftly and painfully. No one. She was rich in possessions, yet desperately poor in connection. Her suffering had no witnesses, no language, no release. It was hidden behind curtains and politeness, dismissed because it did not look like pain was supposed to look. Her siblings passed her in the halls, their expressions hard with contempt. "They should put her to work," her sister said once, laughing. "At least then she'd earn her keep." Elizabeth pretended not to hear, but the words lodged deep inside her, joining the many others that had already made a home there. That night, she lay awake listening to distant sounds from the slaves' quarters, soft singing, rhythmic and low. The melody was unfamiliar, the words foreign, but the emotion was unmistakable. It was grief woven with endurance. Elizabeth closed her eyes, and tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. She realized then that she envied them, not their chains, not their suffering, their sense of belonging. They had each other. She had no one. Her life was controlled just as surely as theirs, only in subtler ways. She could not leave the estate without permission. She could not choose her future. She could not even choose how she was spoken to. Her prison was invisible, but no less real. The thought frightened her. She began to understand that slavery was not only about ownership of the body, it was about ownership of the spirit, about convincing someone they were small, powerless, unworthy of choice. One afternoon, as she watched the workers return from the fields, her gaze lingered on one man in particular, Kofi. He walked taller than the others, his movements deliberate, controlled. There was something unmistakable in his posture, something unbroken. He carried no visible anger, yet no submission either. Elizabeth wondered how that was possible. How could a man in chains appear freer than she felt in silk? The question haunted her. That night, she wrote in her journal for the first time in months. "I live like a guest in my own life," she wrote. "I am fed, clothed, sheltered, and utterly alone." She closed the book and stared into the darkness. For the first time, Elizabeth allowed herself to name the truth she had been avoiding. She was not merely unhappy, she was enslaved. Not by iron or law, but by despair, by shame, by a family that had quietly decided she no longer mattered. And though she did not yet know it, this realization that a cage exists is often the first step toward either escape or surrender.